Hello, and welcome to part one of supporting young people in abusive relationships. My name is Francisco Ramirez, and I'm one of the co-founders of OK So. And chances are you know someone in your life who has been in a relationship that was unhealthy or abusive. Sadly, it's more common than we would like. And our ability to respond openly, calmly, and non-judgmentally to someone who opens up to us is so critically important. In parts 1 and 2 of this training, we'll be talking about supporting young people who may be experiencing what we call relationship abuse. We're focusing part 1 of the training on what healthy and unhealthy relationships look like and how to recognize potential yellow and red flags. Then, in part 2, we'll be talking about how to address what you're noticing with young people. And as we go through these trainings, remember that ultimately young people are resilient and resourceful. And it's everyone's job to remind the young person of their rights to relationships rooted in respect and consent. Okay, so we're focusing in this talk on intimate relationships. But before we continue, let's take a moment to think about how you would define an intimate relationship. In fact, we'll encourage you to pause this video here now if you'd like, and take a look at the accompanying worksheet where you can jot down your response to this question and other questions we'll be touching in on. So feel free to hit pause now. Okay. Now that you've had a chance to define it for yourself, let's get into it. And what is an intimate relationship? By intimate, we mean relationships that are either romantic or sexual in nature. Of course, this definition is quite broad, so let's drill down a little bit more. Take a moment on your worksheet now to fill out these true-false statements to see what else a relationship has to have in order to be intimate. And then on the next slide, we're going to reveal the answers. So go ahead and hit pause here if you really want to play along, and I'll read what's on screen here as well. It says, in order to count as an intimate relationship, it must have physical touching, have sexual touching, include living with a partner, include that a person as a boyfriend or a girlfriend, for example, having been going on for a while, being long-term, being a public relationship, being between a man and a woman. So now you can pause here for a moment and mark which you think are true or false. All right. Well, guess what? They are all false. We often have very specific ideas in our cultures about what kinds of relationship can be unhealthy or abusive, when in fact, any intimate relationship can have these elements. Intimate relationships may or may not include physical or sexual touching, cohabitation with intimate or romantic partner or partners, labels that do or do not include a partner or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, significant other, or other terms of endearment for the romantic or sexual partner. These relationships may or may not be heterosexual, long or short term, and supported by other caregivers and community, or not. In other words, it can be really helpful to examine any preconceived ideas that you have about what intimate or sexual relationships look like, so that you don't miss something because you didn't realize that it was a relationship. So why are we focusing so specifically on intimate and sexual relationships? Well, it's because of how sensitive these topics are in many cultures and communities. Many, if not most, young people have few trusted places or people to help process the many nuances and boundaries that help us navigate such relationships. And there are a lot of reasons for this. First, many cultures and societies frown or look down upon extramarital relationships of this nature. Sometimes religious values have rules or codes that the young person is considering as well. In the United States, only about half of states require evidence-based, informed, accessible sex education that helps young people understand the mechanics and behaviors in sexual, intimate situations. In other words, if they aren't getting the information at home, they aren't getting it at school either. Additionally, young people are also in a key stage of human development. You already know this, but a reminder that adolescence is a biological, psychological, and spiritual period in a person's life during which a person's various systems are adjusting as they grow into adults. All right, now that already is a lot to have going on. And to add to that, it's also during adolescence that many young people are exploring their own unique gender and sexual identities. They may be experimenting to see what clothes, behaviors, language, and spaces feel most right for who they are. And this is when they are asserting self-determination and autonomy. These, of course, are key markers of adulthood in many cultures and something that we as adults need to respect. It's especially important for young people to control what information they share, how they label themselves, and who they are. Folks who are exploring and asserting these aspects of themselves may come off as bold or, conversely, as secretive or defiant. But it's critical for them to be supported and to gain tools to communicate and recognize healthy boundaries during what's the most experimental, dynamic part of their lives. If this all sounds intimidating, as an adult supporting someone, don't worry. Young people are also in one of the most creative, resilient, and dynamic periods of their lives. They're managing amidst all this change the best that they can. And it's wonderful that you are one of the people helping them, which is important to keep in mind because these young people remain among the most vulnerable to intimate or romantic relationships that include unhealthy or even abusive behaviors. Okay, so given all of that, then what's next? Well, in order to recognize what's unhealthy, it helps to understand what is healthy. So let's talk through these first. Feel free to fill them in on your worksheet as we go. Okay, first, a healthy relationship has open communication. But what does this actually mean? Well, it means everyone in the relationship can share their feelings respectfully and that it's not one way. For example, it's easy, say, for Brooke and Shira to share different opinions about their favorite place to go on a date. Neither humiliates or shuts down the other person when debating or discussing their desires. Also, in healthy relationships, boundaries are respected. No one pushes or tries to break down another's boundaries. For example, let's say Sochi and Blue can talk about what does or doesn't feel good. And they consistently express and follow each other's guidance when having sex so that both can have a good time. Another important characteristic of healthy relationships is that nobody feels rushed. For example, Rocky and Victor can take their time texting back and forth to each other without a fight, because they both have different schedules. Rocky is okay to wait for Victor to say, I love you, and to be monogamous, because they don't want to rush Victor into a shaky yes. Healthy relationships are ones where people can feel flexible. For example, while a few months ago, Janae and Sachiko were exclusive, they were able to work through a few difficult moments and discuss a different boundary about their relationship and are both happy with trying it out. In our work with young people, this one here is one of the things we see young people struggle with the most. Healthy relationships have equal space for me time and individuality in the relationship. For example, let's say Allie and Monica sometimes don't see each other for a whole week, and that's okay. Allie loves that Monica has a loving group of friends that she hangs out with and prioritizes. And Monica knows that Allie is super close to his family and needs to be at a lot of family gatherings with them. And this is also because they have trust. And if there's any doubt, both Monica and Allie feel safe. Safe to express uncomfortable or difficult feelings or experiences. They know that no matter what, nobody is going to make the other person feel scared, harmed, or harassed. Ultimately, there is equality in relationships that are healthy. All people in the relationship understand that they are equally respected and equally responsible to care for the other person. Their inputs, feelings, and opinions are equally factored into their decisions. And this that we've discussed here is a really helpful and important list. But as with most things in life, relationships aren't black and white. Most relationships are on a spectrum. All relationships are influenced by factors, including changes for one or all people in the relationships. External things like a traumatic or a stressful event or period in one or both people's lives, moves to a new home or city or school or job, changes in physical or mental health conditions, and even good changes like exciting news or success or wins. These things can add stress and bring out unhealthy behaviors in a relationship. The important thing is to remember that throughout these stressors, it is never okay for abusive behaviors to surface. In young people, this might include possessiveness,